I stood in the shadow of the Obsidian Hotel's revolving doors. The Chicago wind cutting through the thin polyester of my uniform like a knife. It was 20 degrees below freezing. But I wasn't allowed to wear a coat. Staff policy. My sister Brittany had said with a laugh, handing me a stack of plastic coat check tickets. Try not to embarrass me. Sierra. The tips are yours to keep if you earn them. I took the tickets without a word. My hands were numb. But my mind was crystal clear. I checked the platinum watch hidden under my cheap cuff. 8 o'clock. The gala was starting. And Brittany didn't know that the woman she just ordered to check coats actually owned the floor she was standing on. Before I tell you what happened when I took that first coat, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's standing with me tonight. The cold in the lobby wasn't just temperature. It was architectural. Marble floors. Glass walls. And the icy stares of Chicago's elite as they handed me their furs and wool trenches. I took each garment with mechanical precision. Tag. Hanger. Stub. Repeat. I didn't smile. I didn't make eye contact. To them, I was part of the furniture. A 27-year-old failure named Sierra, who had washed out of art school and come crawling back for a handout. To me, I was a surveillance camera. Every sneer. Every dismissed. Thank you. Every tip thrown at me like a bone to a dog. It was all data. My phone vibrated against my ribcage. Hidden inside the inner pocket of the oversized vest. A notification from my banking app confirmed the transfer was complete. Aurora Capital Group. The private equity firm I'd built from a laptop in a studio apartment 5 years ago, had officially finalized the acquisition. I wasn't just the coat check girl. I was the landlord. But I needed them to hang themselves with their own arrogance first. Then I saw him. My father. Richard. Strode through the revolving doors with the confidence of a man who hadn't paid for his own dinner in a decade. He was wearing the Italian overcoat I'd secretly paid for when his credit card was declined last Christmas. He walked right up to the counter, not looking at my face, and tossed the wet wool at my chest. Careful with that. Sierra. He snapped, adjusting his cufflinks. It's worth more than your car. I caught the coat before it hit the floor. The smell of his cologne triggered a memory so sharp, it almost made me wince. 3 years ago, I'd sat in a lawyer's office, signing a wire transfer for $200,000 to pay off his gambling debts. I had done it anonymously, through a shell company, to save them from foreclosure. The next day, he had come home beaming, telling me he'd won it back at the track and lecturing me on financial responsibility. He called me lazy while spending my money. I'll take good care of it. Dad, I said, my voice flat. My mother, Cynthia, stepped up beside him. She looked me up and down, her lip curling in a mix of pity and disgust. At least you're finally doing honest work, she said, loud enough for the couple behind her to hear. Maybe this will teach you the value of $1. We're doing this for you. You know, someone has to teach you humility. That was the moment the last thread of guilt snapped. I used to ask myself why. Why were they so relentlessly cruel? But watching my mother preen in the reflection of the glass, I finally understood the trap. They didn't see themselves as villains. They truly believed that humiliating me was a form of kindness. In their twisted logic, forcing their daughter to serve them in public was a moral lesson I desperately needed. They thought they were fixing me. That kind of delusion isn't just toxic, it's incurable. And it meant there was no reasoning with them. There was only removal. Enjoy the party. Mom, I said. She didn't answer. She just turned her back and walked toward the ballroom, confident that I would stay exactly where she put me. She was wrong. I wasn't staying in the coat check. I was just waiting for the right moment to burn the building down around them. My phone vibrated again. A single sharp pulse against my ribs. I pulled it out, shielding the screen from the prying eyes of a woman in a fox fur coat who was impatiently waiting for her ticket. It was a text from Elias, my general counsel. The message was short, brutal, and beautiful deed recorded. The building is yours. You own the floor they are standing on. I stared at the screen, a cold smile touching my lips. They thought I was Sierra, the art school dropout who couldn't pay rent. They didn't know that while they were mocking my little paintings and waste of potential, I was building Aurora Capital from a laptop in a basement apartment. I wasn't painting. I was analyzing distressed assets. I wasn't finding myself. I was finding undervalued companies and turning them around. I didn't inherit this money. I clawed it out of the market with my bare hands while they called me a failure. But the hotel wasn't the only thing I owned. I looked across the lobby at my parents, who were now laughing at something Brittany was saying, completely oblivious to the financial precipice they had been dancing on for years. 3 years ago, they hadn't been laughing. They had been weeping at their kitchen table, staring at a foreclosure notice. Brittany, the genius VP, had convinced them to leverage their home equity into a high-risk investment scheme that imploded overnight. They were days away from losing everything: the house, the cars, the status they worshipped. That was when I stepped in. Not as their daughter, but as a ghost. I used a shell company to purchase their debt. I didn't hand them cash. I knew they would just burn it again. I set up a legal structure called an irrevocable spendthrift trust. It's a mechanism usually reserved for children who can't be trusted with money. But in this case, it was for my parents. I bought their assets, paid off their debts, and effectively became their legal guardian in financial matters. They never knew it was me. I had Elias tell them it was a legacy pension fund or some lucky administrative error in their favor. They believed it because they wanted to believe it. They wanted to believe they were special, that the universe owed them a bailout. They took the monthly allowance I generated for them and called it retirement. They drove the cars I legally owned and called them status symbols. I had saved them from homelessness to spare their dignity. I had let them keep their pride because I thought that was what a good daughter did. I thought if I saved them, maybe they would eventually see me. But watching my father hand his coat to me without making eye contact, I realized my mistake. I hadn't saved them. I had enabled them by shielding them from the consequences of their own stupidity. I had given them the luxury of being cruel. They weren't standing on solid ground. They were standing on my shoulders. And they were kicking me in the face for the privilege. That ended tonight. The trust had a clause, buried deep in the fine print of the contract they signed without reading. It was a bad behavior clause, and public defamation was a breach of contract. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. The secret was heavy, but it wasn't a burden anymore. It was a weapon, and the safety was off. The gala was in full swing now. A roar of clinking glass and forced laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings. I was busy tagging a mink coat when a hand clamped around my upper arm. It wasn't a gentle touch. It was a claw. "Sierra, wake up," Brittany hissed, her breath heavy with expensive champagne. She yanked me away from the counter, ignoring the line of guests. Her eyes were bright and glassy, manic with the high of being the center of attention. "I need you. Now." "I'm working, Brittany," I said, trying to pull my arm free without making a scene. "This is what you wanted, right? I don't pay you to talk back," she snapped, though she wasn't paying me a dime. "The VIP restroom is a disaster. Some idiot spilled a Merlot everywhere. And the cleaning staff is unavailable. You need to handle it." I froze. "You want me to clean the bathroom? I want you to be useful," she corrected, her voice dropping to a vicious whisper. "You're lucky I even let you inside the building. Look at you. You're an embarrassment. The least you can do is make sure my guests don't ruin their shoes." She dragged me toward the corridor leading to the VIP suites. The hallway smelled of fresh lilies and old money, a stark contrast to the task she was assigning me. But it wasn't Brittany's cruelty that broke the final seal on my mercy. It was what happened next. My mother, Cynthia, stepped out of the ballroom. She saw Brittany gripping my arm. She saw the humiliation burning in my face. For a split second, the child in me hoped she would intervene. I hoped she would say, "That's enough, Brittany. She's your sister." Instead, she smoothed her silk dress and looked down at me with cool indifference. "Just do it, Sierra," she said. "It's honest work. It won't kill you to scrub a floor. God knows you've never contributed anything else to this family." The air left my lungs. It wasn't just indifference. It was endorsement. She wasn't just watching the abuse. She was authorizing it. They didn't see a daughter. They saw a resource to be exploited and discarded. You're right, Mom, I said, my voice dangerously calm. It won't kill me. I walked into the VIP restroom. The spill was there. A dark red stain spreading across the pristine white marble like a crime scene. But I didn't reach for the paper towels. I reached for the lock on the main door. Click. The door shut with a heavy finality. I was alone. The bass from the gala thudding through the walls. In the mirror, I saw tired eyes and a wine-stained polyester vest. I took it off. Let it fall into the spill, revealing a black silk blouse, my boardroom armor. I fixed my hair, reapplied my lipstick war paint, and pulled out my phone. I didn't call my family. I messaged Elias, my head of security. Protocol 0. The reply was instant. Acknowledged. Locking down the perimeter. The stage is yours. I walked past the waiting guests, past the manager who stopped himself mid-scold when he saw my face. This wasn't the look of staff. It was the look of an owner. Inside the ballroom, Brittany stood glowing on stage, praising her promotion and mocking those who just hold the coats. Polite laughter followed. My parents applauded. They didn't see me walk straight down the aisle and up the steps behind her. Her mic died. The screen behind us flickered, then snapped to a single logo. Aurora Capital Group. Silence crushed the room. I took the microphone. Good evening. As of this morning, Aurora Capital has acquired a controlling interest in the Obsidian hotel chain and the parent company of this division, which makes me the majority shareholder. And your boss. Brittany froze. You're lying. You're broke. I was never broke. Just discreet. I turned to the audience. Tonight, I witnessed a senior executive publicly abuse an employee. That is a liability I won't carry. I pointed to security. Brittany is suspended, effective immediately. Escort her out. She panicked and detonated. She stole our parents' retirement, Brittany screamed. My parents instantly played the victims, wailing about betrayal. The room wavered. I waited, then nodded. The screen changed to a legal document. The Henderson Irrevocable Spendthrift Trust. I didn't steal their money, I said calmly. I impounded it. I explained how Brittany's advice had nearly bankrupted them. How I bought their debt, saved their home, and placed everything in trust. I owned it all, the house, the cars, the lifestyle. They lived on an allowance I provided. The room's pity shifted from me to them. I highlighted a clause on screen. Public defamation of the trustee results in suspension of funds. My father begged. I'm your father. And I'm your trustee. Request denied. I suspended their allowance. Revoked the cars. Cancelled the club memberships. Brittany screamed that I was leaving them with nothing. I'm leaving them with you, I said. Fix it. I walked out into the cold Chicago night. Lighter than I had ever felt. No party. No champagne. Just a cab to a cheap diner. Fries. Black coffee. I moved their numbers into a folder labeled legal. That night, alone on Christmas Eve, I felt complete peace. I paid for my freedom and finally got the receipt.